Florida and this collective, we have to revel in it when we can. Tennessee beat Florida for a baseball SEC championship. Tennessee beat Florida in basketball this year. If Tennessee can beat Florida in football coming up, and Florida is as dysfunctional as it appears that they may or may not be, this it warms my heart, warms my Tennessee heart to see this. So this week, Florida loses out on Jaden Rashada. He's quarterback, 4-star quarterback in this 2023 class. He chooses to go to Miami, reportedly for $9 million, $9.5 million, according to this report that I'm looking at. And supposedly, Florida had offered him a counter offer to Miami's, had offered him $11 million in NIL money. And he chooses Miami instead. And I could see the reasons. I mean, Gainesville's a dump. And yes. Miami is, depending on the, kind of what you like. It is a beautiful city. Been there a couple of times, and there's plenty of stuff to do. A lot more nightlife, sheep, but Lamborghinis driving around, hot chicks and whatever. I get it. Miami has sheen, and Gainesville is it is quite literally a swamp. So, I could see some factors like that weighing into this. $9.5 million is still an absolute ton of money for a kid who's 18. So there's plenty of factors there that could come into why he chose Miami over. I think Miami has the better coach at the moment with Mario Cristobal. Plenty of stuff going on there. But the main thing that happened is that the lawyer that supposedly facilitated this whole deal came out and said that Florida's NIL collective is one of the most dysfunctional that he's seen, and that he will never deal with Florida's collective ever again. They were terrible, and that they stink. Hopefully what he's saying is correct. But did you see this, Zach? What did you think of Florida being shamed on a national stage here?
It was a bit confusing at first for me, because I was trying to keep up with all this, and I'm like, okay, they're dysfunctional, but they also offered this kid $11 million, which is more than Miami offered. I mean, it just came down to, like you said, preference, better town, better coach. The Miami's uniforms look a lot better than Florida's uniforms. I mean, it probably just came down to silly stuff like that. So I'm like, how dysfunctional can they be? But then you start thinking about the NIL stuff, and it goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show, is we don't really know a lot about how these collectives are operating.
Yeah.
We don't really know how the payouts are happening. Okay, are you securing the deal, and then a local burger joint's paying you for some appearances? Like, who's paying the money? What kind of recourse is there to get this money that you've been guaranteed? Because we saw the deal allegedly that's Nico's, which is the same attorney that worked that deal. They've never confirmed that it's Nico, but all signs point that way. There's talk in that contract about paying some money back, and just a lot of kind of shady things. Maybe not shady, possibly shady, but it's really different things. Language that you don't see in normal contracts. So maybe it's some stuff like that he's alluding to. Maybe they're not really on the up and up as far as their payouts and how guaranteed this money is, or where it's going to come from. I mean, anybody can promise a recruit $11 million, but are you going to follow through? And since this NIL stuff is so new, there isn't a history to look back on. Have they paid their players? There aren't players to talk to about their experiences with all this stuff. So it's, if somebody's giving off the wrong vibe and they don't seem trustworthy, I can see how that would be an issue then. So maybe that's what he's talking about.
Maybe. I think you've seen some evidence with these collectives that, compared to like a seasoned sports agent that you would see that, they represent NFL players and have been doing it for 20 years. I think that you could see some of these NIL collectives are sort of amateur hour. Like, these guys would come to the table with these collectives and go like, who are you? What? Because some of these collectives are made up of people that used to work in the athletic department of some of these schools, and don't have actual, they're not sports attorneys. They're not agents that have been doing it for 20 years. They're just like people who saw an opportunity to kind of cash in or to try to help their school or try to, there's a lot of different motivations there that could be going on. But I think that you have absolutely have some situations at these schools where it's kind of like I said, amateur hour with these collectives. And maybe that's what's happening at Florida. It's just amateur hour. And they didn't go into specifics there. And Florida's collective came out and made a statement. Michael Caspino the recent comments have never been brought to our attention. Gator Collective has never had any communications with Mr. Caspino about Jaden Rashada or any recruits. I bet that's true. Gator Collective has refused to engage in any dialogue with Mr. Caspino on numerous occasions, as Gator Collective does not approve of his tactics. So I honestly, again, kind of reading the tea leaves here, it feels like a sort of shark lawyer type of guy dealing with amateur hour. Maybe. I don't know.
That's such a strong statement to make if you're Florida.
It is.
Because Caspino, I believe he confirmed Rashada's deal with Miami, right? I mean, he confirmed.
On 3, that's Shannon Terry's outlet. Shannon Terry, the creator, I believe, of 247 Sports, who's now created On 3. I mean, it's a serious, highly regarded outlet. They reported all of this. And it said, shortly after On 3, 4-star quarterback Jaden Rashada announced his commitment, the college football rumor mill quickly started turning. They quote social media. And then Michael Caspino with Forward Counsel in Newport Beach, California, said the rumor mill isn't accurate this time around. Caspino, who has built a reputation as the NIL lawyer representing many top football and college basketball prospects, Rashada took a, quote, considerably lesser NIL deal. So he did confirm that an NIL deal was taken. I don't know that he directly confirmed the $9.5 million, though.
But clearly he was involved with this player. I trust On 3's reporting. He's always done great reporting, just like with the Nico stuff. They've never confirmed anything because they don't have that confirmation necessarily. So they're not just going to throw that out there. It's very serious allegations, I guess you'd say, kind of. I mean, if you say a player took money from a collective that's associated with a program, which I think the NCAA says is illegal at the moment, that would be a pretty big deal. So if you're the Florida collective, the Gator collective, and you're throwing that statement out there, that's pretty bold considering Caspino's probably talked with them, and he probably has the receipts of these conversations, and he's not afraid to speak to the media. So he could blow them up real quick if he wanted to, it seems like. So they might be playing with fire there. I don't think that's the most – they probably should have just avoided comment altogether. That would have been – if I was their PR consultant, that would have been my suggestion.
And you know what's interesting with this also is that a few weeks ago, Billy Napier, said in a press conference, we will not get into any bidding wars in NIL. He said it somehow like that. And clearly that was a lie. That was not true because this was what sounds like essentially a bidding war for this kid's services. But Caspino said, quote, Jaden left millions on the table. He did not pick the highest offer. He went there because he loves Miami, the coaches, and the opportunity. Was the exact quote from Caspino. I hope all of this, I hope that this lawyer is telling the truth, that it is totally dysfunctional. I'm going to guess in reality, it's somewhere in the middle. I bet this guy is an absolute shark. I bet his tactics
without
are
a
probably
doubt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's underhanded, trying to cash in on the situation, doing whatever he's got to do. I'm sure this is probably some sort of PR play that he's making here. But at the same time, I think there really is a factor in this NIL stuff because it is so new, because it is this kind of Wild West new frontier that we're crossing into. You have people that are going to make mistakes on this front end, that they don't know what they're doing. And so they go out and try to get in a, sort of a war of words with a shark lawyer like this. And I don't know, that's the smartest move you can make if that's something you really want to do. But hey, we'll see. Hopefully, Lord willing, Florida keeps screwing up and getting bad PR, and Tennessee keeps capitalizing and getting recruits. That would be the ideal situation. But it's just more interesting NIL stuff, though. The whole situation is seriously fascinating. Just
Especially
as it
because we don't know where
evolves.
it's gonna go.
Yeah, you really don't. Like it is when you say that it is the Wild West. I that is really the perfect description. That gets thrown around a lot, or it's like cryptocurrency is the Wild West and all that stuff. And sometimes, that's not necessarily true. This really is. Who knows? I because there, it's that factor that you said at the beginning of this conversation is like nobody knows where the money's coming from. Like
Yeah.
you really don't. Is it truly like, oh, we've set up these recurring deals with small businesses and that adds up to $1 million? Or is it like, if we're speaking in terms of Tennessee, names that Tennessee fans would know, is it something like we quote set up a deal with Weigels, but really the money is coming from some giant donor? A Haslam type. I don't think that Haslam would work with Weigels, for obvious reasons. But, is it something like that where just the money is coming from somewhere else, but the NIL says it's a deal with
Yeah.
Alumni Hall or whoever, but really it's with some giant donor who's a billionaire. Who
Be
knows?
very I'd be very, very interested to know the language in these deals and what kind of, is the player signing, like, is it a exclusive deal, or are they giving up their rights to make an NIL deal for themselves, where it's like the collective's paying you this amount of money no matter what? Like in Nico, for example, if he's getting $8 million, let's say it's, 2.5 million a year or whatever he's going to get. Okay, we're going to pay you this like a salary, however that works. It's going to equal out to that. And then you got to go do this appearance here. You got to do the appearance there. Money from those appearances is going to the collective. They're negotiating that separately, paying Nico whatever. Like, I wonder, 'cause otherwise, what prevents a player from earning your money from the NIL collective and then going out here on your own and doing an endorsement for a company? I mean, you feel
Yeah.
like there's got to be some protection against that as well. So is it an exclusive deal? Is there a non-compete? Like, how's all that work?
The thing that I want to see is an actual contract here.
Yeah.
Has anybody produced that from any of these big NIL deals? Like, show me the actual contract with the language. Is there a non-compete? Is there any language built in, like you were talking about, where what if the kid transfers and what happens then? Do they have to pay back money? Like what is the deal? It's a giant black box. It's crazy to really think about. Um, but so in a situation like this with Florida, who knows? Who really knows? I am definitely of the opinion. I bet the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think it probably is kind of amateur hour with Florida's collective, and then this guy is probably really underhanded. The lawyer is probably really underhanded, and the truth kind of meets somewhere in the middle there.